Hello. Ooh, that's really loud, isn't it? Lovely to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me, Mary. I think I did come to your group on screen in those dark days of COVID in sort of like late 2020, early 21, I think it was, wasn't it? So it's great to be back here in person, and it's one of my favourite things in my role to come out and visit groups. Next week I'm in Preston, which is a lot further for me to go, because I actually live in Coventry. So it was a quick hop, skip and a jump down the M40 and the M42 and the A448 to get here this evening. So, as it says up there, I am going to be talking to you for the next 45 minutes or so about Tackle Prostate Cancer. But first, a little bit about me. Ray's taking photographs. It always does unnerve me a little bit. So my name's Sarah, and as Mary said, I've been in post now with Tackle for almost 4 years. But prior to that, I've worked with a number of organisations. And in fact, for the last 35 years, I've worked in health and social care, both private organisations, statutory organisations, and in the last 20 years, all voluntary sector charities. I used to work across the Midlands for Parkinson's UK, I've worked for Macmillan Cancer Support, and I've worked for the British Lung Foundation, and then Prostate Cancer UK, and now Tackle. And all of those roles have been around developing services, managing services, and improving services for people with either long-term or life-limiting conditions. Prostate cancer is something that, at a very personal level, is very important to me. My dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer in his late 60s. He had treatment at the time, and then, as was the way back then, he fell between the gaps. And like many men, he wasn't followed up after his initial treatment, and it wasn't until he was quite late on, really, in his late 80s, that we realised that, well, I noticed that he was becoming incontinent, and dragged him to the GP. He'd been very private about his prostate cancer. Like many men, he hadn't talked about it, even with me. Anyway, by the time they treated him again, they discovered that he'd got advanced prostate cancer, and the last 3 years of his life were very difficult because it sort of coincided with lockdown and him being on hormone treatment, so it was very tricky. And as his eldest daughter with no wife, I supported him. So all of you partners out there and family members, I do understand what it's like to try and support somebody with prostate cancer. So this job makes me humbled every day because I get to support people living with and impacted by prostate cancer. So a little while ago, and this might relate to some of you here, we sent out a survey, and we asked our group leaders to send it to their members. We support the support group leaders, but what we don't do is have any of your data. So the only people we contact are people like Mary. So we asked Mary to send out a survey to all of her group members and everybody across the country. And we received over 500 responses, which was amazing. And within that, 1,200 specific quotes on the value and the impact of attending a prostate cancer support group. So if you replied to that survey, thank you. This might well be your quote up here. I don't think so. But you can see this is what someone said. Oh, Dan, it's sort of missing off the bottom. Attending the support group gives us a platform to talk about our struggles. Having discussions and having other professionals attend and delivering talks on subjects has given me the knowledge and support to implement changes and improve my physical well-being. And that's why you're all here, isn't it? You're all here because in some way coming to the support group helps you. So who are Tackle? Well, essentially, we exist to make sure that nobody has to face their prostate cancer journey alone. Tackle is the name for the National Federation of Prostate Cancer Support Groups. And as Mary said, we now have 123 support groups in our federation. There are more, but they're just not members yet of Tackle, but they will be. So we've been going since 2008, and we came together with 3 very clear aims: support, awareness, and campaigning. And I'm going to focus on all 3 of those through my presentation in the next 40 minutes or so. This up here is our vision and our mission. So our vision is where we want to get to, and our mission is what we're doing now to get there. So our vision is to become the go-to charity for peer support. And we're having great strides in that. And last year, in fact, we signed a partnership agreement with Prostate Cancer UK, who had been providing some support to support group leaders, but don't do that anymore, recognising that we are in a much better position to do that ourselves. And what we want to be able to do is we want to enable the growth of peer support groups across the country to ensure the needs of people living with or impacted by prostate cancer are met and their voices are heard. And how do we do that? We have a very small team, and it's actually great that there is a team now, because when I came into post in September 2020, I was actually the only employed by Tackle Prostate Cancer, and I spent the first 18 months entirely on my own. So it's great that we now have a little team. They don't all work full-time. Most of them, in fact, work part-time, but there's myself and Mark up there who work on a full-time basis, primarily supporting the support group leaders. And then Kelly does our admin, and then Andrew, important role up there because he tries to get in more funding, and then Molly does our comms, and Angela does our finance. We're also supported in our aims and objectives by our incredibly hardworking and volunteer-led trustee board, and most of you will recognise Dan here. Dan, is you not able to get it up at all? No. Right, Peter's just dropped off the bottom there, but Peter Corbishley joined us last year as one of our trustees. We have a couple of vacancies, and we'll be sort of advertising those soon, but there are trustees up there, and I know that you have already met a few of those. I know that Tony came to talk to you, and Aidan has been before, and Steve as well, so I'm sure you know them all very well. So we all know the quote by the famous line by John Donne about no man is an island entire of itself, every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. And that for me obviously is about the importance of connections. And Tackle and our federation exist to forge connections so that nobody has to face that prostate cancer journey alone. As Aidan once said, we are a support group for support group leaders. So just in the same way that this support group, your group coming to Kidderminster, going to your coffees and chats and what have you across the county, we at a national level support our support group leaders. So we support the people who support you, because it's quite a daunting prospect, you know, running and organising a support group. And I'm sure that Mary, over the years, how long have you been doing this now, Mary? Too long to mention. 22 years. And wow, okay. That's probably one of our oldest. I mean, Torbay has been going for 25 years, and Kent has also been going for 25 years, but that's amazing. Thank you very much, Mary. Well done. So I'm sure that Mary will tell you how running a support group is quite a lonely thing sometimes. You know, there's a lot to do, and some of our support groups aren't half as big as this. I mean, I'll sometimes drive 200 miles and there might be 12 people there. So this is actually a very big support group. But whether you've got 12 people or whether you've got 200 people on your database, it's a tough job running a support group. And so what we want to try and do is to minimise the effort and to try and bring groups together so that we can share the load and we can share resources and knowledge and information, and so that nobody's having to sort of reinvent the wheel on their own, really. And what does connection look like? Well, you're going to be the first people in the country to actually see this video. This was a video from our conference last week. It's a very small snapshot. It only lasts about a minute, and hopefully the technology will work. Oh, maybe not. Sorry. Why is this not working, Dan? Should work. No. It worked in the rehearsal, didn't it, Dan? That's right, there we go.
It's been a brilliant day today here at our annual conference. Particularly been brilliant to hear from the variety of peer support groups that are out there. That was, I think, a really great way to hear about how peer support groups come together in different ways to support one another. We've got one common goal, and that's to make sure that everybody living with, diagnosed with, or impacted by prostate cancer is supported on their prostate cancer journey. And behind me, the buzz that you hear is people, our support group leaders and organisers coming together to try and find the best ways to reach more people so that people don't have to face their prostate cancer journey alone.
Today's been really informative, really well run. I love hearing about how other groups support their members.
Tackle, I'll be with you, tackling prostate cancer. Hey, let's fight this together. Cancer, don't let it win.
Thanks, Dan. It's always great when there's a brilliant tech person on hand. Thanks. So you'll see there that, as I say, was just a very small, short snapshot of our conference. And one of the stars of the show was Alison Hanson, who, as many of you will know, has recently set up a partners group across the county. And Alison came and sat on our panel in the morning, where we heard from a number of support group leaders who were doing things slightly differently. And Alison came to talk about partners. And there was a real buzz in the air. I mean, there was so much connection going on. And I thought it was a good example of showing you how we do actually connect with our support group leaders. Oh, I'm not going to do that again. So, as I mentioned earlier on, since 2008, we've had 3 pillars of work: support, awareness, and campaigning. And as I often say, we're a really broad church. We're a diverse network of 120 support groups. Some are very large, some are charities in their own right, some are very small community groups. And everybody does things very, very differently. And our role from central support, so that's the bit in the middle there, me, Kelly, Mark, Molly, Andrew, and Angela, we're here very much to support the support group leaders, so that people, as I say, can have the sort of knowledge and the influence and the tools to be able to run their groups. And then the bits around the edges, the support, the campaigning and the awareness, are very much driven by the individual group, based very much on their own capacity to drive campaigning or awareness or whatever. And when people do awareness, people do it in very different ways. And we'll talk about that in a bit. So these are some of the things that we've done. Oh, there we go. How did that happen? Thank you. Amazing. We wouldn't have missed half of the video. So these... So these are some of the things that we've done in the last 12 months, and I'm not going to focus on them because otherwise we'd be here all night. But 45 group visits, as I say, my favourite thing. We've taken over 1,200 telephone calls and email responses from support group leaders. We've delivered 12 support group leader meetings. And one of the things that always amazes me, actually, is that we've raised £8,500 without even trying. So I'm tasking Andrew with trying harder now so that we can get even more money through Just Giving and people doing some community fundraising for us. And lots of other things in between, but I'm going to focus on a couple of those now. The other really good thing, as Mary said, we've got 123 groups now. When I started in September 2020, we were just about to go into the second lockdown. We had apparently around 75 groups, but actually when I phoned up a lot of those people and spoke to them, it was really around 68. So the fact that we've grown, even though there's been a pandemic over the last 4 years and goodness knows what else, is quite remarkable. And since March 23, another 35 groups have joined us. And most of those have joined us because of our partnership with Prostate Cancer UK. And they hadn't been our members before. They then felt comfortable to join us as members. But there are also a number of groups on there, the ones in bold, you can't really see them, that we've actually supported the setup of, not least Caroline's Partners Group. There's a group in Durham, another one in Basildon, and one in West Sussex, West Suffolk, North Dorset, and a number of other places. So I think that's pretty good, really. I wanted to focus on some of the support group activity. As I said, we're a very broad church, and I wish I had time to highlight all of the amazing stuff that our groups do across the country. Mary's already said that this group has been going for 22 years or so. Torbay up in the corner have just celebrated their 25th anniversary. Apple in the middle there have just celebrated their 20th anniversary. We've got North Devon group down there. They are a group that literally just walk. They come together on a monthly basis and they walk. And this is them having their tea. They haven't invited me down yet, but I'm desperate to go on a walk with them. We've got our LGBTQ group over there called Metro Walnut. That was with Paul Burrell. Do you remember Paul Burrell? He was Princess Diana's butler. That was at Pride last year. We've got Milton Keynes in the middle there. Lots of other groups, all doing amazing stuff across the country. Over the last 12 months, we've also continued to grow our offer to support group leaders. When I first came into post in September 2020, there wasn't really very much that we actually did for our members. Our membership is free to support group leaders, and so it's a no-brainer for them to join, really. But we didn't actually give them anything. We now give them a lot. This is some of the reasons why people get in touch with us. People phone us up to ask for leaflets and information about how they can promote their group, to get new members through the door, to start a partners group, and lots of other things in between. I won't go into them all now. We also have a monthly support group leaders meeting, so very similar to this, but it's online, and we regularly get around 35 to 40 group leaders every month on the first Tuesday of the month online, and they come together in exactly the same way that you do to get information and to be supported as support group leaders. And we've done a number of presentations with them over the last year, anything from trying to talk about social media and amplifying people's voices through social media, giving informative information from Prostate Cancer UK and prostate cancer research about different bits of research and different bits of campaigning. And basically anything that we feel or that the group leaders ask for that will be beneficial to supporting them in their role as a support group leader. My post was funded through the lottery, and one of the things that Tackle said I would do, or rather the post holder would do, would be to produce an operational handbook for support group leaders. It's 2024, print goes out of date as soon as it's written. So we've done one better than an operational handbook. We now have a digital online members portal. This is a bit on our website which is secure for support group leaders, which is full of how-to guides, fact sheets, information. At the moment we have around 35 bits of information, and this will grow as sort of support group leaders tell us more of what they want, and then, or something that they've got that will be interesting to other people. When we launched it last July, we had hoped that by a year, around 30% of our support group leaders will have accessed it. It's already up at around 60%, so I think it shows that there was definitely a need for it. So I'm now going to move on to campaigning. We're a really small charity, so we're limited in our ability to campaign, which is why we often sort of piggyback onto other people's campaigns. So, for instance, we support a lot of the Prostate Cancer UK's Missing Men campaigns. Who's heard of the Missing Men campaign? Yeah, absolutely. That's that really shocking, statistics of the missing men and the sort of variation across the country in terms of when people are diagnosed. And that's something that is really, really important to us and to so many of our member groups. We've got 2 campaigns that we're sort of running ourselves, if you like. Well, not ourselves entirely, because, as I say, we're too small. I'm going to focus on one of them in quite a little bit of detail, and then our other one as well. So the first one is our Boys Need Bins. Who knows about Boys Need Bins? Gosh, not as many as I thought. So that really surprises me. How many men, do you think are incontinent in this country? 1 in 10, 1 in 20. Anyone got an idea? 1 in 10, yep. Okay, so it's actually 1 in 3. 1 in 3 men are incontinent in this country. Yet, there is no legal provision for sanitary bins in men's cubicles, which just blows my head away. It blows my mind. I cannot believe in this day and age of equality that as a man, you have nowhere to put your incontinence pads. As a woman from the age of 11, I've always been able to put my sanitary towels in a bin in the toilet because there's always one in there. And I had assumed until about 3 years ago it was the same for men, but it isn't. And so my old colleague at Prostate Cancer UK and I came together 2 years ago to try and do something about this, because I'd heard this horrific story of a man. I met him at the Metro Walnut Group in London in July 21, and he told me this story of how he had been walking down a street in London and he suddenly realised that his trousers were sopping wet. And I naively and stupidly asked him why he hadn't changed his pad. And he said, have you tried to get rid of a pad in a men's toilet? And of course, I was naive and stupid, and I said, oh, have you not got bins? And I didn't even realise that there was a sort of legal requirement for women to have bins. I thought it was just what we did, I'd never been into any men's cubicles. And then I realised that, of course, there isn't a legal requirement. And then I started speaking to men, because I like to do that. I like to have men's stories and people's stories in my head all of the time. And I heard some horrific stories. Men who would embarrassingly put their pads in their pocket, walk out of the toilet, give them to their wife. They would put them into their handbag. I heard from men who would tell me how they'd stuff them down the back of pipes, flush them down the toilet, or literally put them in their own pockets and walked away. And some really sad stories of shame and embarrassment from men. And then, as I say, I came together with the campaign team from Prostate Cancer UK, and we started to look at how we could do something about this. And there had been campaigns before, but they'd never really taken off. And it was sort of a serendipitous moment, really, because the BBC had a story about a rugby player who had bowel incontinence, who had also been complaining about the lack of provision of bins in men's toilets. And so it sort of all came together, really, and the Boys Need Bins campaign was started. And we've done all sorts of things. We've done letter writing campaigns. 95% of all MPs across the country now know about Boys Need Bins and have had letters and campaigning letters from their constituents and groups like this and all sorts of groups across the country. We had an event at Westminster last year where a number of MPs, and you can see down here, some of our support group leaders came together at Westminster to campaign about Boys Need Bins. And there's been success as well, you know. So in the last year, Winchester, Hampshire, some places in Lancashire, the whole of Jersey, Bath in Somerset, and a number of other places have now started to change the law, or rather to put bins in council-run toilets in their areas. And also lots of venues and retail outlets and workplaces have also followed suit. Sorry, I'm just going to take a drink of water. Right. Should have had this open. I do get very passionate when I talk about Boys Need Bins. Because it's such a simple thing, isn't it? That it would make a really big difference to lots of men. This up here is Ian Smith. Ian Smith is one of our supporters who read about Boys Need Bins in Prostate Matters, or just in sort of on our social media. He's a man living with prostate cancer up in Chorley in Lancashire. And he was so incensed by this campaign and the fact that there wasn't provision for men that he went to see his local council, and he wrote and managed to get an appointment with the Director of Community Services and had a half-an-hour meeting with her. And at the end of the meeting, she said, "What do you want?" And he said, "I want some bins in boys' toilets, in men's toilets." And so she said, "Fine, write me a proposal." And that's what he did with our support. And this is a local councillor in Chorley who's now advertising the fact that they have now put in, because of Ian Smith, they've now put in bins into the local toilets in Chorley. And because they've done it in Chorley, they're now going to do it in Blackpool. So for me, this is an example of how you have power. You have power to change things. And all you have to do is write to your local councillor. If you go to a golf club, ask them why you haven't got a bin in the toilet. These are simple things, small changes that can make small action that can make big changes. So if anyone wants to do anything with bins, please get in touch with me. So the other campaign that we're doing in-house at the moment is very much around trying to elevate the benefit of groups like this and to amplify the importance of them. If we were a large organisation, we would buy television advertising, we'd do radio advertising, but that's not going to be possible with us because our income last year was around £130,000, so it's teeny. We're a teeny charity. But I think we have something much more valuable than that. We have you, we have all of your voices, and you can give us your stories and the reason why you come to these meetings and why these meetings are so important. And so we have got some people that have done this. Don't worry, Alison, I'm not going to play yours. Alison has given us her story, but this is Gordon from not very far away, actually, in South Warwickshire.
Right away, I was, I suppose, surprised, because I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea really what I was going along to. How open and helpful and honest all the men there were. They were very clear about what had happened to them and the ups and the downs, etc. And, you know, all of that was, I found tremendously encouraging. I was also able to have a one-to-one telephone conversation with individual members of the group as well, which helped me through the process of deciding what treatment I should have. And, you know, I think that was tremendously helpful as well. And actually, subsequently, I've done that as well. I've talked on a one-to-one basis with somebody post-my treatment just to help them decide what they should do. And I find that tremendously helpful as well. But the group meeting and discussing, you know, obviously the one underlying theme among all of this is no two cases are the same. Everybody's different. For whatever reasons. I mean, even if it's just your own age, even if it's just how you came across your prostate or whatever, but no two cases are the same. So, but you still, clearly there's a lot of overlap and crossover and helpful information from all of the men, and I just thought it was tremendous. You know, it's so unlike men opening up about all of these very personal issues, because prostate's a very personal thing, as we know, for the outcomes of it, and I just thought it was tremendous.
So that's Gordon from South Warwickshire, and I'm going to show you another video of his in a minute. So what Molly, our communication manager, is doing, or trying to do, is to get volunteers, to people like yourselves, to tell us your story, to tell us how important coming to a group like this is, the benefits of coming to a group. And then what Molly will do with them is to turn them into teeny little video clips, which then get sent out on social media or on other ways to advertise and promote the value of groups, so that nationally we are starting to tell the important stories about what and how support groups can benefit people living with or impacted by prostate cancer. And we know how hard it is for people to find that door and walk through it. Some of the sort of barriers that people put in front of themselves, let alone the ones that we give them. And so if we can break down those barriers and normalise coming to a support group, then that benefits everybody. So here's one more from Gordon.
Do you feel, before you went into that support group setting, would you say that you're naturally quite an open person, or did you feel a little bit resistant, or was, because everyone else was really open and welcoming, did you find it quite easy to kind of go into that more intimate side of conversation?
I mean, I found it quite easy, but that was, you're right, but that's because everybody else was open first. You know, you obviously join that group, and the people who have been there before, they've talked about things before, but they're there and they're prepared to be extremely open about everything that's happening to them. So in that sense, it was easy. It was easy to be open to the group. So I didn't find that a problem at all.
So if anyone is interested in giving us your story, get in touch with me or speak to Peter or to Alison, because Alison's done it already, and it was quite a painless thing, Alison? Jolly good. So now I'm going to focus on awareness. Awareness is something, as I said earlier on, is absolutely crucial to all of us. I'm sure that everyone in this room wants to make sure that somebody is diagnosed in a timely fashion as early as possible, and then are given the support they need and that they want for their individual selves to make the right treatment choice. Awareness is also related to finding that door. You know, so there's two strands to awareness. There's the first, which is the important one around early diagnosis, making sure that no one has to face their cancer journey alone. But then in order to do that, they need to find that door. So there's also the awareness of our groups. And so that's a two-pronged approach. I'm going to talk about them both now. So we raise awareness through a multiplicity of ways. And when we talk about our federation and how we raise awareness, it's not just us from Tackle Central Support, obviously, but it's more importantly the awareness that groups do across the country. And I know that in Worcestershire you do some amazing work with awareness in all sorts of ways. Not only are you doing PSA blood testing events, but you're speaking to a number of clinicians and community groups. You're doing all of your sort of putting out your leaflets in a number of community venues, barbershops, all sorts of places. And that is replicated across the country. And why? I don't like this, but this bit here, this media card here, this template, whatever you want to call it, this map that comes from the Missing Men campaign by Prostate Cancer UK, which highlights the disparity in glaring terms across the country. How shocking is it that in Scotland, 35% of men are going to be diagnosed too late for curative intent? And, you know, we talk about the north-south divide. That's glaring there, isn't it? From 35% in the north down to 12.5% in London. And the Midlands, we're at 17.8%. So that's just under 1 in 5 men are diagnosed too late for curative intent. So we know that there isn't a national screening programme, but we all work very hard to raise awareness of the importance of men knowing their risk. And how do we do this? As I say, we run awareness stands, we speak to faith and community leaders, we speak to workplaces, some groups, around 10% of groups, organise community PSA blood testing events, we hold events, we hold music nights, we hold comedy nights. In fact, last week, I was down at the studio of the Oxford Playhouse, in Oxford, strangely, where a man living with prostate cancer has actually written a stage play. And it's played last week to a packed house. He's going up to Edinburgh for the Fringe Festival in August. He's booked to play in Bradford for 2025 for City of Culture, and is in Warrington later on this year. And so people do all manner of things to try and raise awareness and to alert people to their risk factors and the importance of early diagnosis. And I thought I'd just share a little bit of this with you now. So this is some of our support groups across the country doing just that, raising awareness of the importance of early diagnosis. You'll see here that Aidan features quite large. Aidan Adkins, who I know has come to speak to you before, he's our co-chair, and he does an amazing amount of work across the Midlands, really, especially in the black community, to highlight the importance of black men understanding that they have a 1 in 4 chance of being diagnosed with prostate cancer. 1 in 4. Can you imagine? A quarter of all black men are likely to be diagnosed with prostate cancer. You know, in the UK general population, it's 1 in 8, but 1 in 4, that just, again, blows my head. We've got Coventry here in the middle. They were doing a PSA blood testing event, and my husband, Bruce, he's featured up there in the corner. I made him go along and have his PSA tested when we were volunteering last year with Coventry. Here is Huddersfield Group. They were doing a Men's Health Day for last year on Men's Health Day. This is Torbay. They were doing another health event. Burton-on-Trent Group, Burton and District Group, they did an amazing thing. They actually, Screwfix, which is a really large company, as I'm sure all of you know, they went and delivered 4 presentations to their workforce, to all of their workforce over a number of days, including one to the night shift. And so that's a sterling effort, really, I think, from one of our support groups. This is North Hampshire down there doing a sort of town centre awareness thing. This is, that's Torbay again there doing another health event. And then lots of Aidan in between. So all of our groups do fantastic work, and I know that you do as well. So thank you again, because it's a really important bit of our federation. And it doesn't just stop with the support group leaders. here is our some snaps of our trustees. I think there isn't one of Peter actually, but lots of other of our trustees are on there. This is Tony over here. He did an awareness talk for 15,000 Amazon staff. And then there are some other pictures from the Oncology Professionals Conference. This is Ken down here at a conference in Europe. So they do fantastic work as well to raise awareness. And how do we promote all of this? We also promote all of the work that we do centrally through social media. And social media is the future, obviously. I know that you don't all use it, but it is really important to get those messages out to younger men, especially. And up until 18 months ago, we didn't really have any social media presence. And so it's great to see that in the last year, our follows, I don't know very much about this, I have to say. It goes off over my head, which is why I have Molly to do all of this. But our follows have gone up 73%, which I understand is great guns, actually. It's really good, which means that the people we reach has grown by almost 60%. And then much the same with Instagram and Twitter, or X as we have to call it now. And then we have these, and this is what we try and get people like yourselves to help us with. So these are our C cards. Have you seen our C cards before? No? Okay. So on the table in front of you, there's a little package, and whoever takes the package has to take the challenge. Can everyone take the package and open it? Come on. It's not going to bite you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mary. So in there, you will find some C cards. Now, our C cards are a sort of little credit card size card that alerts people to how wonderful our support groups are. And it dispels the myths about what a support group is, to try and encourage men and partners to attend and to try and find where their local one is and reach out. So those of you who've taken the package, thank you very much. If you could take that package, and there's a free pen as a thank you prize, a bit like a Cracker Jack pen, for those of you who remember Cracker Jack. So has everyone taken one? Come on. There's that one in the middle there. It's looking very lonely, and you've got the biggest table. Thank you, madam. Thank you. And so what I would ask you to do is to take some of these cards to anywhere where men and women will be, which could be anywhere. So barber shops, golf clubs, doctors' surgeries, and just leave 20 of them on the counter. Just say, can I leave these here? And they'll probably say yes. And the benefit of these is that they have our website on, and they also have a little QR code. And most people have got a smartphone, and if they haven't, there's a website. But that then links straight through to our support group directory on our website. And wherever you are in the country, wherever you get diagnosed, you can find a support group to suit you and to meet your needs, whether it's a face-to-face support group like this, an online support group nationally for carers and for partners, or one of our support groups for people living with advanced prostate cancer, again, which meets online. So if you've taken a package, thank you very much. Let me know how it goes, and do ask if you want some more, and I'll happily send you some. Coming to the end now. So our future plans, obviously, an organisation like us starts with fundraising. My post was funded through the National Lottery. We should be hearing in the next week or two whether we've got continuation funding from the lottery. And we've also put in an application with Movember. So we've got two big applications in at the moment. One, as I say, to continue the work that we've been doing, funded by the National Lottery, and to be able to focus down on some areas where we don't have as many support groups as we should have, and more importantly, we're not actually meeting the needs of the local communities. So we're going to be doing some very sort of focused work in a couple of particular areas. And then we've also applied for some money from Movember to continue our peer coaching program. And I'm understanding that some people in the room have done the peer coaching training with Aidan, have they? No? You did, right, okay. A buddy scheme, okay. So those of you who did the buddy coaching training with Aidan, we're also going to replicate that across the country and focusing particularly on the Midlands, Yorkshire in the North East and the LGBTQ community to train up some coaches to be able to support people through their diagnosis. Again, we get some money from pharmaceutical companies, mostly sort of around project-based working. So our comms money for Molly, from our comms manager, comes from mostly from pharmaceutical companies. They also funded our conference, and they fund sort of little bits of work. So tiny, sort of not core funding, but tiny little bits of work. And as I say, Just Giving, this is just literally by fluke, people supporting us through running, marathons, all that sort of thing, various runs and stuff. £8,500 has been raised just in the last 12 months without any trying. So Andrew is working really hard at the moment with Molly to think about some community fundraising that we're doing. And why does this all matter? Well, let's take us back right to the beginning and to the group member survey that I talked about earlier on. I think, as I said, we had over 500 responses, and that equated to an awful lot of data, and it also equated to 1,200 individual quotes. Now, I could easily sit there for 3 days and go through those quotes and pick some out, but that's not really going to be very objective. And so I was talking to somebody, to Nick actually, one of the directors at PC UK, and I told him my problem, and he said, oh, might be able to find a sort of program to be able to sort of like, some sort of AI program. And I thought, hang on a minute. And this is one of the benefits of being part of a huge federation. I like to call it my sort of hive mind, really. If we don't know the answer, there is usually somebody else somewhere in the network that does know the answer. And one of our support group leaders, Martin Wells, he's an amazing man who has a razor-sharp brain, particularly around artificial intelligence and those sort of things, which, again, just goes over the top of my head. And so I spoke to Martin about our problem to tell him that I'd got all of this data, and I wanted to sort of extract the data to be objective so that it wasn't me looking at this data and saying, oh, yes, I'll choose this and I'll choose that. It needed to be really objective so that it could be sort of validated data. And he said, well, I can build you an AI. So basically, he did just that. He built us an AI, put all of the data in, which then was able to sort of show us the themes, around what our survey told us. And so this is all courtesy of Martin, really. So these are the sort of key themes from the survey. It talks about emotional support, it talks about information sharing, it talks about positive environment, it talks about empowerment, it talks about community and friendship, and it talks about coping strategies. And for me, those themes were exactly what I think I probably would have said that a group gave somebody living with or impacted by prostate cancer. But this is real. This is absolute data that you can't argue with. This is what the survey has told us. It creates a sense of belonging and mutual care among members. Members learn and share coping mechanisms for both physical and mental health challenges. Meetings are infused with humour and positivity, helping uplift spirits. I'm sure any of you that have shared some of the difficulties of living with prostate cancer will agree with this. All of these themes are replicated across all 123 of our groups. So I started this presentation with a quote, and I'm going to end with another quote, which again was sort of thrown out by this AI. And I love this quote. Joining the support group has helped me dealing and managing my emotional, mental and physical health positively. I feel supported, listened and cared for by our members and can provide that support back to our members too. Being part of the group takes away the feeling of loneliness in dealing with the disease. Being in the group allows us to talk openly about our worries, our anxieties and the difficulties we face with treatments and side effects. This provides knowledge and great comfort. Prostate cancer peer support groups are very important to us. We're getting new members all the time who need this service, and they hope that this group continues and gets stronger. And that's indicative of so many of the quotes. So, as I said, if you responded to that survey, thank you so much, because this data and this evidence will help us prove our value, not only so that we can make sure that more people find that door, but also that we can help hopefully get more funding to continue to be able to grow stronger, to be able to, next time I'm standing up here to tell you that we've got 150 groups in our network. Wouldn't that be amazing? So that's it really. I'd just like to say thank you very much. There's my email up there. If anybody wants to email me and ask me a question, they can do. But otherwise, it's over to you now, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Oh, yes, okay. Anybody got questions then?